Today's adventure brings us to the small town of Somerset, Wisconsin. Somerset is known for its scenic river tubing, beautiful campgrounds, and large outdoor music festivals. In the early 1900s, however, Somerset was known for something far different. It was known for being the home of John Till, the plaster healer. In researching for this story, I came across an article written by Cliff Parnell. It is a concise and well-written summary of the life of John Till. We'll be using it along with my own additions in today's video. The goal of my videos is to document places and people of the past and take you, the viewer, to the actual locations in the story. Johann August Till was born on August 11, 1870 in Einsdell, Austria. One of about 6 children, his father was Joseph Till. John's father Joseph was a shoemaker and also drove a wagon transporting limestone from a quarry. One day, his horse and wagon showed up at home without him. The family commenced a search, retracing his route to the quarry. Along the way, he was found face down in a creek, with axe wounds to his head and arms. He had been murdered. The mystery of his death was never solved. This story was told in an oral history video of John's granddaughter, Alexandra Till, in 2006. When John was about 9 years old, he was caught in the path of a runaway horse team, hauling a wagon load of flour. He broke both legs and received serious injuries to his feet. A lack of doctors and limited resources led his mother to seek the help of a monk, something that was quite common in those days. The monk looked after the boy for several weeks. John returned home after the infection subsided, but the bones didn't set properly. He had problems with his feet thereafter, preferring not to wear shoes, a trait that would later become somewhat of a trademark. As a child, John and his siblings worked to support the family after the death of his father. The children provided labor for textile mills and a glass-blowing factory. Later, as a young man, John learned the trade of blacksmith. John came to the United States, arriving at the port of Baltimore in October of 1902, bound for Elmina, Wisconsin, with $10 in his pocket. A friend had preceded him to the U.S., so John had someone waiting for him in Elmina, Wisconsin. He found work in the pine forests and farms of western Wisconsin. John had learned trade skills during his apprenticeship under a blacksmith in Austria, who also taught him folk remedies and healing. Till would treat men in the lumber camps and developed a local reputation for healing all manner of illnesses. He was said to have cured a man with gangrene. The following year, John paid passage for his sister Bertha to join him in Wisconsin. She arrived in May 1903 on the ship Neckar and was married in 1904. In June of 1905, the Wisconsin State Census finds 37-year-old John Till working as a laborer and boarder at a farm in Elmina, belonging to his sister Bertha's in-laws, the Strouberl family. In the autumn of 1905, a farm wife named Melinda Cloutier in the small town of Somerset was near death from an infection, said to be lockjaw or tetanus. Her husband Octave took her to Till, whose treatment appeared to cure her. The news of her recovery spread like wildfire, and before long, the little town of Somerset was taken by storm. Till soon moved in with Octave and Melinda Cloutier, whose farm was just south of Somerset Village. They set about building a new wing onto their farmhouse to accommodate the influx of patients. With no formal medical training and Till's qualifications as a blacksmith and lumberjack, he seemed an unlikely doctor. His basic plaster treatment was a concoction of kerosene and croton oil, both of which are irritants intended to stimulate blood flow. Till and his followers believed the plaster drew the poison out of the body at the spine, stimulating healing. No matter what the complaint, patients stripped to the waist while Dr. Till applied the plaster to the back, from the neck to the bottom of the spine. In addition to the plaster, he had several other remedies, including a wonder tonic for internal use that contained rhubarb root and honey, among other things, and a salve that Somerset natives refer to as Cloutier salve even 100 years later. So based on old maps, I do know that the Cloutier farm was in this area. It is no longer here. All that remains is a street sign indicating it was once here. John's fame spread across the upper Midwest, and soon trains and coaches were letting off hundreds of sufferers in Somerset each day. From early morning to late at night, Till and Cloutier lined patients up on chairs in the makeshift clinic, treating them in groups of 6 to 12 people and sending them on their way. These are the railroad tracks that would have brought people to see John Till. Unfortunately, the depot is no longer here. I do have a photo showing you what it did look like at one time. John allegedly cured hundreds of people with various ailments, ranging from cancer to corns, all with his handy plaster. Journalist Earl Chapin described his work attire. He wore a plain woolen shirt, open at the neck, an unbuttoned vest, and generally went barefoot. He wore 2 small gold earrings in his pierced earlobes. He went long periods without shaving, and he took snuff. Now, according to John's granddaughter, the reason he wore earrings is because back in those days, they actually believed that if you wore earrings or if you pierced your ears, it would help with your eyesight. And I thought that was weird, so I did research it a little, and sure enough, I found an article about pirates and why they pierced their ears. And actually, scientifically, it makes sense. John Till, the self-described healer, treated patients without a medical license in Somerset between 1905 and 1908. Huge crowds arrived each day to seek treatment, and businesses in Somerset reaped financial benefits. Boarding houses sprung up all over town. Wagon drivers kept busy, and the local saloons did good business. His legal troubles began soon after he joined the Cloutier family. A newspaper report from April 1906 tells about one of his first run-ins with the Wisconsin Medical Board. A trial in county court on charges of unlawful practice ended with the jury acquitting him after only a half-an-hour deliberation. John Till, doctor or not, was just too good for the local economy to do without. Occasionally, the doctor needed a break and would use the plentiful income to fund extended vacations to Europe and to bring back fresh medicinal supplies. In January of 1907, a ship list shows John Till and his host Octave Cloutier returning from travel in Europe. Also traveling with them was Till's half-brother, Louis Patch, who was one of Till's assistants. John Till didn't actually charge for his treatments, but allowed his patients to donate what they felt was appropriate. In this way, Till was able to avoid some of the legal liability he would have faced otherwise. Most people offered at least a silver dollar, and many did more. With the reported 100 or more patients a day, Till earned sums far above the typical wage for the time. Till's finances were the subject of much speculation in the newspapers. Thousands of dollars per week were estimated, and after several years in the business, there were reports of local banks holding hundreds of thousands of Dr. Till's money. One of the more detailed news reports claimed a deposit in 1908 as silver dollars covered an area 5 foot long and 32 inches wide, stacked 20 high, and some paper money and gold worth $2,000 to $3,000. This came from the Eau Claire Leader, May 2nd, 1908. At one point, he began loaning out money himself, holding mortgages on local farms with an interest rate that undercut the bank. In the spring of 1908, as the doctor planned his yearly trip to Europe, the Somerset locals made plans to take advantage of the lull. Many homes underwent renovations, and lots of fresh paint, general sprucing up, and repairs took place. Several new buildings would go up, preparing to reap the windfall when Till returned. Then, late in the summer of 1908, Till had a falling out with the Cloutiers. It came following his yearly extended vacation to Europe, which included a large entourage. The doctor was held up by authorities while trying to re-enter the U.S. at the port of New York. The reason given was due to deformity of his lower extremities. Till had been run down by a horse-drawn wagon as a child and suffered a serious injury that had not healed properly. This was the reason he rarely wore shoes, having little luck finding comfortable footwear. The Cloutier family continued on to Wisconsin, while Till was held in the hospital at Ellis Island. This incident effectively ended the relationship, as Till accused the Cloutier family of abandoning him at the border. When he was finally cleared to enter, he ended his Somerset practice and proceeded to ship all of his belongings to his sister's home in Elmina. In the fall of 1908, he set up shop for a short time in Elmina, Wisconsin, with his sister Bertha. Before long, hundreds arrived in town each day seeking treatment, and several trains were added to the schedule to accommodate the masses. In fact, one newspaper reported that the Sioux Line Railroad had plans to erect a large new depot at once. Now, from what I can tell, based on Google Earth and other resources, The farm, the Storburl, I think it's pronounced, farm is no longer in existence. It's now just an open cornfield. So there's not much I can show you there. So I'm just going to continue the story here since it's a beautiful day at the railroad. Till's time in Elmina lasted less than a year, as problems followed him as surely as his faithful patients. He was subject to a smallpox quarantine, was being sued by former patients, and was under attack from the medical board again. The last straw may have been a business dispute with his sister, and by June of 1909, he fled to his homeland again for several months to escape. This time he traveled alone, taking $80,000 with him. By the end of the year, the people of Elmina realized Till would not be returning. Business owners mourned his absence, rail service was reduced, and the pace of the small town reverted to pre-Till levels. Till returned to America in the spring of 1910, again looking for a new venue to ply his trade. With his fresh supply of herbs, oils, and supplies from Europe, he bought a farm near New Richmond and went about setting up a new clinic. John had originally applied for United States citizenship in 1908, but had been denied because he was absent for the final hearing. He reapplied later, and despite a protest by U.S. Immigration Special Agent R.S. Coleman, Till was made a naturalized citizen on March 28, 1910, by the Circuit Court of St. Croix at Hudson. Now, as you can probably already tell, John didn't stay in one place for very long, so we are actually headed to his next location, and this one I'm pretty excited about. I was able to actually find the location based on the information that I have, and not only do I think I found the exact location of his home, I think the house is still there, guys. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm gonna try to be very careful about how much I film there, because there are people that live there and I don't want to invade their privacy. But I do want to show you guys the beautiful home that I believe he built. It has changed over the years, but it's pretty awesome, and that is where we are headed next. So as I said, I want to be respectful of the people that live here, but I do believe that this is the home of John Till in New Richmond, Wisconsin. I'm going to drive, this is actually on a corner lot, so I'm going to drive the side of it too, just so you can get a different view. A lot has changed, you guys. The windows are in different placements, the porch has been extended, there's been a lot of remodeling, but the house is over 100 years old, so that's to be expected. But I want to match it up with the pictures I have, so I'm going to just drive around here slowly without being too intrusive. And then here is the side of the home, which has actually seen an extensive amount of remodeling based on the photos I have. So this is the New Richmond train depot. This would have been in use when John was here in New Richmond. And I figured I would take you here. Loud truck, and show you something else historical from this city and from this time that would have been used. This is the depot, and I'm trying to get out of the sun a little bit here. I think we'll, right here. There you go, how about that? The 1910 census shows John living in Star Prairie Township, just north of New Richmond, Wisconsin. For his occupation, he claims to be doctoring, and the household total of 11 people, including a partner, several servants, he called them assistants, a cook, laborer, and boarder. So the lot that I just showed you, or the house I should say that I showed you, actually was a 5-acre plot. Obviously portions of it have since been sold off and just the house remains, but I do think it's pretty cool that the house is still there. In 1911, Till was accused of the death of Mrs. Anton Bosch of St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, I did try to find a death certificate for Mrs. Bosch. I found her name, and I found that she did pass away, but I could not find a death certificate or anything to indicate how she died. So I cannot deny or confirm that information. In 1912, Dr. Till did travel to Austria with the goal of taking a wife. He was never accused of being a great romantic, and his method of choosing a bride proved it. According to granddaughter Alexandra Till, he approached the mayor of Ditzdorf and requested a list of eligible spinsters who were skilled in cooking and cleaning. he was supplied with two names, the Steiner sisters, and within a few days he proposed to Hedwig Steiner. She accepted and they were married on September 9th, 1912. The couple then returned to Wisconsin to resume his medical practice. In 1913, son John Till Jr. was born in Richmond, Wisconsin. This was the only child John Till would ever have. In 1917, the Till family was living in Turtle Lake, Wisconsin, with John keeping a somewhat lower profile. He had instructed staff and library services to avoid using the word doctor in connection with his name. He was apparently trying to ward off any more run-ins with the medical board. The plan failed and they came after him again. In 1919, he shuts down his facility in Turtle Lake and moved on to his next venue. So this is Hudson, Wisconsin. This actually used to be where the old train depot was. As you can see, it's not here anymore. It is now a private walking path for the residents of this area. But this is where the rest of our story begins. In 1919, Dr. Till purchased the Galahad School for Boys in North Hudson for $5,000 and went about setting up another clinic for treating the ill. Small private Galahad School, otherwise known as the Penfield School, had been founded in about 1905 in a large two-story stone house on Galahad Road. The primary purpose of the school seemed to be the education of Wilder Penfield, whose mother Jean was the driving force in creating it. Ironically, Wilder Penfield had gone on to study at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, attaining his medical degree in 1918, and later became a renowned neurosurgeon. So as I said, this is where the Hudson train depot used to be. Now if we pan around here, this is where the Galahad School used to be. It is not here anymore. All that remains is the street sign. So there's one pillar and two pillars that I came across. I'm wondering if these might be part of the original Galahad School entrance. It is quite possible. In 1920, the U.S. Census shows John Till living in North Hudson, the former boys' school. He was running his sanitarium, as he liked to call them, on Galahad Road near the St. Croix River. Besides John's wife and son, there were 6 others in the household. The various titles such as partner, hired labor, maid, and nurse. Till was trying a new strategy by hiring Dr. William Sinon, an actual medical doctor, as his partner, and yet another attempt to stay out of trouble. The plan didn't work, and before long, John again ran afoul of the law. He was jailed in late 1920 for practicing medicine without a license, as reported by several medical journals. Supporters of Till started circulating petitions to have him released, including several actual medical doctors. A prominent Somerset businessman, A.J. Vanass, personally traveled to 4 counties collecting signatures and had a meeting with Wisconsin Governor Blaine to plead for Till's release. The governor was witness to plenty of loyal support shown, but was finally swayed by the advice of several doctors who showed serious concern for Till's health. Blaine released Till in December 1921 with the condition that he stop practicing and leave the country. The Till family traveled to Europe in 1922 and settled on a sizable property he had previously purchased in Ditzdorf, Austria. After losing everything to the N-word, YouTube doesn't like that word, the naughty people, in World War II, John Till returned to live on a farm in western Wisconsin. While visiting friends in Kiel, Wisconsin, he passed away of a heart attack in 1947. He is buried in Kiel, Wisconsin. Now, I don't understand why he's buried in Kiel. His final home, my understanding, was actually, like it said, western Wisconsin. I believe in the Barron area, but he was buried in Kiel. It is beautiful out here, but it is a little chilly, so I think I'm going to finish our story in the truck, perhaps, or somewhere a little less windy, but it is beautiful, isn't it? The sun is shining, the lake is looking good, fishermen are out and about. It's a beautiful day in Wisconsin. All of my favorite little spots are crowded with people today. on a Tuesday. What's up with that? But I thought I'd take you to this cute little spot. Now I have to read you guys John Till's will because it made me giggle. And it just goes to show that just because it's in the newspapers doesn't mean it's fact. They make mistakes too, guys, and they made a very big mistake in his obituary. So it reads, John August Till, age 76, a well-known plastic surgeon, died Monday afternoon at his home on the northern outskirts of Kiel. Death followed a heart attack. Born August 11, 1870 in Austria, the deceased came to the United States in 1898 and resided for a number of years in several Manitowoc County communities. Again, no he didn't. Later he returned to Austria, where on September 9th, 1912, he was married to Hedwig Steiner. The couple came back to America, where Mr. Till practiced plastic surgery at New Richmond, Turtle Lake, and Hudson, Wisconsin. And in the spring of 1922, they returned to Europe. They settled in Kiel last year. Not true. Shortly after their return from abroad. They were just there visiting friends when he passed away. At least that is how I've read it. Survivors include the widow, one son, John William Till, and one grandson. In researching John Till and preparing myself for this project, I read a lot of newspaper articles. It was kind of crazy how much they wrote about this man. Understandably, because he became very renowned in the area. And I went into this trying to be unbiased, trying to see both sides of the story. But when I read this article, it stuck with me. And I think it really gives you a good idea or a good picture of how the people, the real people of the communities that John served, felt about him. And so I thought I would read it to you just so that you guys could get an understanding of how those people felt, the people that actually knew him, met him, and were treated by him. The article is called They Get John Till. The following is the way the Jefferson County Union handles the matter of the arrest of John Till of Turtle Lake, which sounds somewhat different than the many publishers have regarded the situation. There is some doubt in our minds about the wisdom of prosecuting John Till of Turtle Lake, Barron County, on a charge of practicing medicine and of fining him $250, considering the fact that he never charged a penny for his services and did a great deal of good. John Till, in a way, was scientific in his treatment of human ailments. The visitor suffering from the disease would go to the homestead and be given a card costing 25 cents by an employee. The 25 cents very probably was divided up between the employee and John Till and would barely cover the most meager service. So far, the expense, to say the least, was slight. The patient then went into the house and when his turn came was told to pull off his shirt and bend over, bringing the spine prominently into view. Till would then slide his fingers up and down the spine, and when he came to a place where the inflammation of the tissue from pressure on the spinal nerves gave a cottony feel, he would say, "Here's your trouble," as the trouble came from lack of circulation in the disc-feeding tissues at that point, causing starvation of the fibrocartilage cells in the intervertebral disc or discs. It was a safe bet that a red pepper plaster would help matters, and to be fair to Till, it is not stretching the truth to say that it very often did just this. In fact, it could not help it. The visitor got no great amount of relief while in the presence of Till, because the matter of relief required time for the plaster to work. Therefore, he was not tempted to lay much of a gift on the table. There was no receptacle there for money. It was usually 25 or 50 cents and sometimes $1. Many gave nothing. Now comes the pitiful part. Thousands of poor people were helped by John Till, and to them he was a physician, for he healed them. But he never allowed the forbidden word doctor to appear on buses that run to his farm, nor in any literature whatsoever. The people whom he helped looked upon this prosecution of their friend as persecution, and it will make them angry and resentful. How the prosecution managed to rope John Till with a law does not matter so much as how a law came to be passed that would harm a benefactor of mankind that did what John Till did. We suspect that a way back, when the people were not looking, the American Medical Society, an organization that takes in about 40% of the doctors of the United States, got busy and pushed this law through. In our opinion, this law ought to be repealed. Such laws encourage Bolshevism and for that reason do more damage than all the so-called quacks that ever lived. This idea that the public must be snubbed to a new post by each new legislature is getting on the nerves of the common people. The ease with which Bolshevism snapped the hands of Russian civilization gives us all food for thought. The framework of society is now enduring a tremendous strain, one that is bound to pull apart many apparently strong bolts, and some very important beams and girders are going to come tumbling to the ground. To summarize, many have claimed that John Till saved their lives. His granddaughter even pointed out that his tinctures have been proven to work via the science of today. He was using herbs that we use now for the ailments he was treating then. She said her family continued to use his recipes with great success. She said her mother was cured of breast cancer and that she actually saw the tumor being removed from her body with the plaster. I do believe that many of John Till's troubles came from the greed of money. Mrs. Cloutier and John's sister Bertha both started their own plaster businesses after having their fallout with John. Perhaps they felt they were owed more of John's donations than they actually received. The lawsuits could be legitimate or a money grab. We all know how that works. And as far as the prescription drug companies, well, they don't like competition. So what do you think? Was John Till a quack that peddled his snake oil to vulnerable people? Or was he a man ahead of his time? Someone that cared deeply for humanity and just wanted to help? I'll let you decide.